The colony ship touched the alien soil with a soft, trembling sound. Dust lifted in the air, glowing faintly under the pale blue sun. Captain Elias stood at the edge of the ramp, staring at the strange world before him. The land stretched wide and silent, covered with tall, crystal-like trees that sparkled as if made of glass. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed. He tightened the strap on his pack and stepped down, his boots pressing into the soft surface that felt more like sand than soil. Behind him, the ship's engines cooled with a low hum, the only familiar sound in this quiet place. Then they appeared. From between the crystal trees, tall figures walked forward. Their bodies glowed faintly as though light itself flowed under their skin. Their faces were calm, almost human, but their eyes were wide and shining like stars. They did not speak at first. They only looked at him, their gaze heavy and full of meaning. Elias forced a polite smile. "I come in peace," he said. His voice sounded small in the vast silence. One of the beings finally spoke. The voice was smooth, deep, and carried an echo as though more than one throat had spoken the same words. "Feed our children, human, and when night falls we will give you a gift." Elias froze. "Feed their children?" His mind filled with questions. What kind of children? What kind of food? And why wait until night? But the being stood waiting, silent, glowing like statues of living light. He nodded slowly, not wishing to show fear. "Show me," he said. They turned as one and guided him deeper into the forest of crystal trees. The path shimmered under his boots, each step waking a faint hum, as if the ground itself was alive. The trees bent slightly toward him, their crystal branches whispering soft chimes in the wind. Still no animals, no insects, no sign of normal life, only the glowing beings and their quiet steps. At last they reached a clearing. In the center stood rows of tall pods, each one shaped like a giant crystal cocoon. They pulsed with dim light, faint and slow like the beating of a heart. "These are our children," the lead being said. Elias stared. The cocoons stood taller than him, their surfaces translucent. Inside each he thought he saw shadows moving. Small figures curled and still, wrapped in glowing mist. His stomach tightened. Were these truly children? Or something else? The being stepped closer to the nearest cocoon and placed a glowing hand against it. The pod answered with a brighter pulse like a flare of life. "They wait," the being said, "but they cannot wake without you. Only food from your hand will call them to life." Elias frowned. "Why me? Why a human?" The being's glowing eyes locked on his. "Because the night is near, and only your kind can prepare them." He wanted to ask more, but their voices left no space for questions. The beings guided him toward a strange table carved from stone and crystal. On it lay piles of alien fruits and plants, each one shimmering faintly, as if touched by starlight. "Make food," the being ordered gently, yet firmly. Elias lifted one of the fruits. It was warm, soft in his palm, and gave off a faint hum. He sliced it open with his knife. The inside glowed like liquid fire, dripping with sweet light. He had never seen anything like it. He tried to steady his breath. He was a soldier, not a cook. Yet here, on this world, these glowing aliens asked him to prepare food for beings still trapped in crystal shells. The request made no sense, yet the weight of their voices made it feel like more than a request. It felt like a command. Still, his mind whispered warnings. What if this was a trick? What if the children inside were not children at all, but monsters waiting to be born? The being repeated the words again, softer this time. "Feed our children, human. And when night falls, you will be rewarded." Elias glanced at the sky. The sun had begun to slide lower, painting the crystal trees with deep shadows. Night was coming. Fast. He looked again at the glowing cocoons. Their pulses had grown stronger, brighter, as if they sensed the setting sun. The figures inside shifted slightly, just enough to send a chill down his spine. What kind of children wait for food at dusk? What kind of gift is only given in darkness? His knife shook as he sliced the glowing fruit, preparing a meal he did not understand, for beings he could not trust. Yet something deep inside told him he could not refuse. The silence around the clearing grew heavier, pressing against his chest. The aliens stood unmoving, their starry eyes watching every motion of his hands. The pods pulsed faster now, like the beating of many hearts. Elias swallowed hard, the taste of fear sharp in his throat. The sun slipped lower. Shadows stretched longer. Night was almost here, and whatever waited inside those cocoons was about to wake. The sky turned softer as the pale sun drifted toward the horizon. The light caught on the crystal branches above, scattering sharp rays across the clearing like broken glass. Captain Elias worked in silence, slicing fruit, laying out glowing plants and mixing them as best he could. His hands moved, but his mind wrestled with fear. The beings stood around him, tall and watchful. Their glowing skin pulsed faintly with every breath, but their faces never changed. They said nothing except when his knife slowed. Then one of them would lean closer and whisper, almost like a warning, "Feed them well." The cocoons answered too. Each time Elias laid down a piece of fruit, the nearest cocoon pulsed brighter. Shapes shifted faintly inside, moving as though they were trying to wake. He forced himself to look away. He had been on alien worlds before. He had faced storms, hunger, and predators. But this was different. He was not fighting the wild. He was serving it. Finally, he placed the last glowing fruit onto the crystal dish. The food shimmered faintly, as though it had absorbed some of his touch. The lead being stepped forward, its starry eyes reflecting the meal. "It is ready," the being said. Elias swallowed. "And now?" The being tilted its head. "Now you wait. When the sun falls, the children will wake and the gift will come." He clenched his fists. "Tell me the truth."
"What are they?"
The being's gaze was deep, endless. "They are life. They are our tomorrow. Without your hand, they cannot rise. With your hand, they will endure the night." The words were calm, but they offered no comfort. Elias felt the weight of them press into his chest. Why him? Why humans? What power did his simple act of feeding hold for creatures he barely understood? He turned to look at the pods again. They glowed stronger now, their pulses matching one another like a chorus of hearts beating in rhythm. Shapes inside twitched. Small arms, curled legs, sharp fingers pressing against the crystal walls. Elias felt sweat crawl down his neck. He whispered under his breath, "What am I waking up?" The beings did not answer. Instead, they guided him away from the stone table and toward a ring of tall crystal spires at the edge of the clearing. The spires hummed, low and constant, vibrating in his bones. "This place is sacred," the lead being said. "Here we prepare for night." Elias stopped. The hum grew louder as he neared the spires. They rose into the sky like frozen lightning, sharp and gleaming. Strange markings carved into their sides glowed faintly with the same light that pulsed inside the cocoons. "What happens at night?" Elias asked. The being paused, then spoke in that same echoing voice. "Darkness here is not like darkness on your world. When light leaves, the other ones come. The hungry ones. They seek our children." The word sent a chill across Elias's arms. He looked again at the cocoons. The beings had not asked him to cook for celebration. They had asked him to prepare their children for survival. So the food, Elias muttered, "Keeps them strong?" "Yes," the being said. "Without it, they cannot fight the night. Without you, they cannot live." Elias's mouth went dry. He was not just feeding children. He was arming them. He took a slow breath, forcing calm. "And my gift?" The being's eyes glowed brighter. "The gift will be yours only if you do not fail. When the night is survived, then you will see." Elias looked toward the horizon again. The sun was almost gone, sinking lower with every heartbeat. The crystal forest darkened, shadows spreading like ink. The cocoons shook faintly now, their pulses faster. He swore he heard sounds inside, low cries like muffled voices begging to be released. He turned sharply. "What if I refuse? What if I don't feed them?" The beings froze. Their glowing eyes flickered. For the first time, Elias saw something shift in their calm faces. A shadow of anger. The lead being stepped closer, towering over him. Its voice dropped lower, echoing darker. "Then they will starve. And when night comes, the hungry ones will eat. Not only our children, but you." Elias's breath caught. The beings had spoken gently until now, but the edge in their tone carried no lie. His role was not a choice. The silence stretched, broken only by the hum of the spires and the faint tapping from inside the cocoons. At last, Elias nodded. He did not have to believe them, but he had to survive the night. The being stepped back, satisfied. "Then you are ready," they said in unison. The clearing dimmed further. The last sliver of sun vanished behind the jagged horizon. Darkness crawled in, slow but heavy, wrapping the land in cold shadow. The cocoons flared suddenly, blazing with light as though fire had ignited within them. Shapes inside twisted, stronger now, pushing against the crystal walls. Elias felt the air shift, cold wind sweeping across the clearing. In the distance, from the depths of the crystal forest came a sound. Low at first, Then louder. A growl mixed with metal, a scream carried on the wind. The beings turned toward the sound. Their glowing hands rose, their eyes burning brighter. "Stand ready," the lead being said. "The night has begun." Elias gripped his knife, his heart racing. He had fed their children. He had done as they asked, but deep down he knew. Whatever woke in those cocoons was not finished with him yet. The last light of the alien sun vanished, and with it, the forest changed. What had been a glittering world of crystal trees now stood in darkness, their sharp edges catching only the faint glow of the cocoons. The air grew colder, heavy, and each breath stung in Elias's throat. The ground itself seemed to shiver under his boots. The cocoons pulsed brighter, lighting the clearing like lanterns. From within, shapes moved more clearly. Arms stretching, small hands pressing against the walls, faces with wide, dark eyes staring out. Elias felt those eyes following him, watching, waiting. Then came the sound. It started as a whisper from deep in the forest. A scraping like metal claws dragging across stone. Then another, and another. Soon the air filled with the noise circling the clearing. Elias tensed, gripping his knife. "What's out there?" he asked, the lead being lifted, its glowing hand pointing toward the shadows. "The hungry ones," it said calmly. "They come every night. They smell the children." The words made Elias's skin crawl. He looked toward the dark line of trees. Between the trunks, something shifted. Fast, too fast for his eyes to follow. The scraping grew louder. Then came a hiss, long and sharp, followed by another. Elias's breath quickened. "And you expect me to fight them?" The being's eyes glowed like fire. "Not yet. Your task is to keep the children awake. Their survival depends on your food. If they weaken, if they sleep, the hungry ones will reach them." The cocoon nearest Elias shuddered violently, cracks spreading across its glowing surface. A thin, high-pitched cry echoed from within, muffled but desperate. Elias stepped back, his heart pounding. He turned sharply. "That doesn't sound like a child." "That sounds like the sound from the forest cut him off." A heavy thud followed by another. Footsteps, large, deliberate, circling closer. The beings raised their hands higher, their glow brightening until their bodies shone like torches. Elias caught his first real glimpse of the shadows at the tree line. Shapes moved there, long, jagged forms crawling low, their eyes glinting faintly red. Their bodies were slick, armored with plates that reflected the glow of the cocoons, their mouths stretched wide, lined with rows of teeth that shimmered like metal blades. Elias's throat tightened. Predators, but not like any he had seen before. The largest of the beings stepped toward the forest edge, its voice echoing like thunder. "You will not have them tonight." The creatures hissed, retreating slightly, but their glowing eyes never left the cocoons. Elias swallowed hard and looked back at the pods. The cracks widened. Inside, small figures writhed, their hands slamming against the crystal walls. Their cries grew louder, sharper, the lead being turned to Elias. "Feed them again." "What?" Elias snapped. "I already did, and they need more. Night drains them. If they weaken, they will die, and the hungry ones will feast." "Do it." His knife trembled in his hand. He grabbed another glowing fruit from the stone table. The skin pulsed faintly as he cut it, releasing a warm light. He laid it at the base of one cocoon. Immediately, the pod flared with brightness. The figure inside pressed harder against the crystal, and for a moment, Elias thought he saw it smile. The scraping in the forest grew wilder, angry, as though the predators hated the light. The other cocoons shook violently now, demanding food as well. Elias cut faster, slicing glowing plants, tearing fruit with his hands, laying it out as quickly as he could. Each time the cocoons answered with stronger pulses. Brighter light. The creatures in the forest shrieked, circling faster, their claws slicing against the crystal trees, sending sharp echoes across the clearing. Elias's pulse raced with them. Sweat dripped from his brow. His knife slipped, slicing into his palm. He hissed in pain. Blood welled up, falling onto a glowing fruit. The cocoon nearest him reacted instantly. It pulsed brighter than ever before, shaking violently. The small figure inside pressed both hands against the wall, its eyes locking onto him. Elias froze. It wasn't just the food. It was his blood. His human touch. The being beside him saw it too. Its starry eyes widened, glowing stronger. "Yes," it whispered. "That is the power. That is why we needed you." Elias stared at the blood on his hand, then at the pods, then at the dark forest where the predators waited. A terrible thought struck him. He wasn't feeding children. He was feeding soldiers. The forest screamed. One of the creatures broke from the shadows, leaping into the clearing. Its body shone black and silver, its teeth snapping with metallic clangs. The glowing beings rushed forward, their light blazing. They struck with hands that burned like fire, driving the creature back. It shrieked, its armored plates cracking under the glow. But more followed, their red eyes glowing like burning coals. The cocoons shook violently as though begging to break free. Elias pressed his bloody hand against one of them without thinking. The pod split open with a sharp crack. A blinding light burst out, forcing him to shield his eyes. When it cleared, a small figure stood in front of him. Child-sized, glowing like the others, but with sharper eyes. Eyes that looked too old. It turned toward the forest and hissed. The predators froze, then roared in fury. The being beside Elias smiled. "Now the children rise." Elias's stomach dropped. He realized the truth. The children weren't helpless. They weren't weak, they were weapons, and the night was only just beginning. The clearing burned with light. The first cocoon stood open, its shell cracked and fallen across the ground like broken glass. From inside, the childlike figure had stepped forward, glowing faintly, its body thin but strong. It looked almost human at first, arms, legs, head all in the right places, but its skin shimmered like liquid crystal, and its fingers ended in sharp points glowing faintly at the tips. Its eyes, they were the worst. They were large, wide, and far too old, as if they had seen 1,000 nights already. Elias backed away, his bloody hand still trembling. He had not meant to wake it. Yet it stood there, breathing the cold air for the first time, and it turned its head toward him. For one silent heartbeat, Elias thought it might attack him. But then the child hissed, not at him, but at the shadows of the forest. The predators hissed back, dozens of red eyes glowing in the dark. The other cocoons began to shake harder, cracks spreading across their glowing surfaces. The air filled with muffled cries, not the cries of babies, but sharp and piercing, almost warlike. Elias pressed his back against a crystal spire. His breath grew short. "This isn't right," he whispered. "These aren't children. They're soldiers." The lead being turned its burning eyes toward him. "They are both. They are our children, and they are our defense. One cannot exist without the other." Elias shook his head. "You used me. You knew my blood would wake them." "Yes," the being said without shame. "That is the gift of your kind. Your life feeds theirs. Without you, they remain asleep. With you, they rise to fight the night." Another pod cracked, then another. Bright light split across the clearing as more figures stepped out. Each was small, thin, but sharp and fast, their glowing hands curling into claws. The predators screamed, their claws clashing against the crystal trees, sparks flying. Elias's stomach twisted. He had not fed helpless children. He had armed an army. The beings raised their hands, light surging from their bodies. But it was not enough. The predators lunged from the forest, teeth snapping, claws raking across the ground. One of the newborn children darted forward, faster than Elias thought possible. It leaped onto the predator's back, sinking its glowing claws deep into the armored plates. The creature shrieked, thrashing, but the child held firm, its eyes burning with cold fury. Another child joined, then another. Soon the clearing became chaos, filled with shrieks, light, and the sound of claws tearing metal flesh. Elias could only watch in horror. The children fought like trained killers. There was nothing innocent in their movements. No fear, no hesitation, only instinct and rage. The lead being stood beside him, calm even as battle raged. "Now you see why we asked you here. Without you, our children cannot rise. Without them, we cannot survive the night." Elias's voice was sharp. "And what happens when they grow? When they no longer need you or me?" The being did not answer. Its glowing eyes remained fixed on the battle. Another predator broke through, charging straight toward the cocoon still closed. Elias acted without thinking. He grabbed one of the glowing fruits, smashed it against the ground, and smeared the juice across his hand. He pressed his palm against the nearest cocoon. Light exploded. The pod cracked open and another child leapt free, shrieking, its glowing claws slashing at the predator. The creature fell back, screaming. Elias stared at his hand, sticky with glowing juice and blood. He realized the truth. He was the trigger. Every new child born tonight would be because of him, and each one looked less like a child and more like a weapon. The forest howled again, More red eyes appeared in the distance, hundreds now. The predators were not stopping. They were waiting, testing. Watching the children grow stronger, Elias's chest tightened. He turned to the lead being. "This will never end, will it?" The being's voice was low, almost a whisper. "The night always comes. The hungry ones always return. We must be ready." Elias shook his head. "You're not just defending yourselves. You're breeding soldiers. You're raising an army." The being finally turned to face him, its expression unreadable. "Would your kind not do the same?" Another cocoon burst open. Another child screamed its first cry, not of fear, but of challenge. The predators hissed louder in response, circling closer. Elias gritted his teeth. He knew now what the gift would be. Not treasure. Not knowledge. It would be power. A weapon tied to him because he had woken them. But power always came with a price. The clearing glowed like a battlefield. The cocoons cracked one after another, each child bursting forth armed with light and fury. The predators attacked in waves, clashing with them, teeth snapping, claws scraping. And through it all, Elias stood in the center, his bloody hand pressed against one cocoon after another, calling forth more children, more fighters, more soldiers. He realized, with a sinking heart, that he was no longer just an outsider. He was part of their war. The battle slowed but did not end. The forest edge still burned with red eyes, glowing like embers in the dark. The predators circled, snarling, waiting for a chance to strike again. The children stood in front of the cocoons, glowing like small warriors. Their bodies were thin but fast, their claws sharp, their eyes filled with cold fire. They hissed in unison, daring the shadows to come closer. Elias stood among them, his hand bloody, his chest tight with fear. Every pod he touched had cracked open, spilling another fighter into the night. He had done what they asked. He had fed them, woken them. But instead of comfort, a knot of dread grew deeper in his stomach. He turned to the lead being. "I've given them life. I've done everything you asked. Now tell me, what is this gift you promised?" The being's eyes glowed brighter. Its face remained calm, but Elias thought he saw something flicker in its expression. Relief, maybe even pride. "It is time," the being said. "You have earned it," Elias frowned. "Earned what?" "Come." The beings moved as one, gliding toward the far end of the clearing. The crystal trees bent slightly as they passed, their branches singing low notes in the wind. Elias followed, though every step felt heavy. They led him down a narrow path away from the cocoons and the children's cries. The forest around them pulsed with faint light, as if alive. Every few steps Elias glanced back, expecting the predators to lunge, but they stayed behind, locked in their standoff with the glowing children. At last, the path opened into a cavern mouth carved into the side of a jagged cliff. Crystals jutted from the walls like frozen spears. Inside, the air shimmered faintly, warmer than outside, the lead being raised its hand. The cavern walls glowed, revealing markings carved deep into the stone. Strange symbols, flowing lines that seemed to shift when Elias looked too long. "What is this place?" he asked. The being's voice echoed. "This is where the first gift was made. This is where it waits for you." Elias's mouth went dry. "What kind of gift?" The being gestured deeper. "See for yourself." Elias hesitated, then stepped inside. The cavern narrowed before opening into a wide chamber. At its center stood a pedestal carved from crystal. Upon it lay something that glowed brighter than anything he had seen yet. A weapon. It floated above the pedestal, humming softly, like a heart beating in the air. Its shape shifted as he looked at it. Sometimes a blade, sometimes a staff, sometimes something he could not name. Light dripped from it like liquid, burning the floor where it touched. Elias stopped cold. His instincts screamed. This was no simple tool. This was something alive, the lead being stepped beside him. "This is the gift, forged from the light of our world, bound to the blood of your kind. It will answer only to you." Elias shook his head. "No, this isn't a gift. It's a weapon." The being's eyes glowed hotter. "A gift can be both. You fed our children, you woke them. You kept them alive through the night. For that we give you power equal to theirs." Elias stared at the weapon. Its glow pulled at him, almost like it wanted him to reach out. His hand twitched against his side. "What happens if I refuse?" he asked. The being tilted its head. "Then it will fade, lost. And the children you woke will have no protector but themselves. You may leave them to face the hungry ones alone, but they will not forget who turned away." The words cut deep. Elias knew what that meant. These children, these soldiers, would one day remember him, whether as their savior or as their betrayer. His chest tightened. He looked again at the weapon. Its light bent toward him, almost calling his name. He took a step closer. The hum grew louder, deep and steady, matching his heartbeat. He reached out, his fingers trembling. The moment his skin touched the glow, the cavern exploded with light. Energy surged into him, searing his veins, filling his body with burning heat. He gasped, stumbling, but the weapon clung to his hand, reshaping itself until it fit his grip perfectly. Visions flashed through his mind. Endless nights of battle, swarms of predators, children hissing war cries, alien voices chanting. And through it all, he saw himself standing at the center, wielding the weapon, the chosen protector. When the vision faded, he stood shaking, the weapon solid in his hand. It looked like a blade now, sharp and endless, glowing with a power that felt both alive and dangerous. The lead being's voice echoed softly. "Now you carry our gift. Now you are bound to us." Elias's breath came fast. He stared at the weapon, then at the being. "Bound? What do you mean, bound?" The being's calm face never changed. "You are the feeder of our children. You are the bearer of their weapon. You are no longer only human. You are part of our night." Elias's stomach turned. He had wanted survival, maybe even reward. Instead, he had been chained. Behind them, a distant roar shook the cavern. The predators had not given up. The night was far from over. Elias tightened his grip on the weapon. Its glow spread through him again, stronger this time, eager. He realized with a chill that the weapon wanted the fight. And perhaps, so did the children he had awakened. The roar outside the cavern grew louder, shaking the crystal walls. Elias tightened his grip on the weapon, its glow wrapping up his arm like fire. He could feel it inside him, pushing, urging him forward. The lead being stepped closer, its voice calm despite the chaos. "The hungry ones press harder. Your gift must be tested. Go now, child feeder. Protect what you have awakened." Elias glared at the glowing blade in his hand. It pulsed like a living heart. Part of him wanted to throw it down and run, but another part, darker, stronger, wanted to see what it could do. He turned and ran out of the cavern. The clearing outside had become a battlefield. The crystal forest echoed with screams and hisses. The children he had awakened fought like small demons, their glowing claws slicing at predators that towered over them. Some predators fell, their armor cracked, their bodies torn. But more came. Endless waves, their red eyes blazing through the dark. The beings fought too, their glowing hands striking like fire. But even with their power, they struggled to hold the line. And in the center of it all stood the cocoon, still unbroken, pulsing desperately, waiting for Elias's touch. The lead being's voice boomed behind him. "Now use the gift." Elias raised the weapon. The light surged and instinct took over. He swung it at the nearest predator. A blade of pure energy burst out, slicing clean through the creature's armored chest. It screamed, split apart, and fell smoking to the ground. Elias staggered back, his heart racing. He had not expected such power. The predators shrieked, turning toward him, more charged claws tearing the ground. Elias swung again, the weapon cutting through them like paper. Each strike released a shockwave of burning light, scattering the attackers. But with every strike, Elias felt something pulling inside him. The weapon was not only burning the predators, it was burning him. Each burst drained him, feeding on his strength, his blood, his very breath. He gritted his teeth, sweat pouring down his face. The gift was no gift at all. It demanded payment for every kill. The children noticed his power. Their glowing eyes fixed on him, not in fear but in reverence. They hissed together almost like a chant. "Protector, feeder." The predators hesitated, circling. Then one of the largest broke free, charging at the cocoons. Its claws slashed forward, aiming to shatter the unborn. Elias moved without thinking. He raised the weapon and drove it into the creature's chest. Light exploded outward, burning through the predator's body. It shrieked one final cry before collapsing, smoke rising from its carcass. The children screamed with triumph, their voices echoing through the clearing. But Elias fell to one knee, gasping. His veins burned, his vision blurred. The weapon pulsed in his grip, hungry for more. The lead being appeared beside him, calm as ever. "Do not fight it. The weapon lives as you live. It feeds as you feed. Together you are one." Elias spat into the dirt. "This thing is killing me." It is transforming you, the being corrected. Another wave of predators stormed the clearing. The children hurled themselves at them, claws tearing, teeth snapping. The beings unleashed their burning strikes. But still the line bent under the weight of the attack. Elias forced himself up, his body trembling. He swung the weapon again, unleashing another burst of light. 3 predators fell at once, their bodies split apart. The children hissed louder, celebrating. But Elias stumbled, nearly collapsing. His chest ached, his blood felt heavy, his lungs burned. He knew it now, the weapon was bound to him, drinking from him. Each use left him weaker, and yet it demanded more. A predator broke through, rushing toward him. Elias raised the blade, but his arms felt like lead. He couldn't move fast enough. One of the children leapt in front of him, slashing at the predator's throat. The beast fell, and the child turned back to Elias, its wide eyes glowing. It hissed softly, almost like it was speaking. Not words, but something close. Respect. Obedience. Elias shivered. These children didn't just see him as protector. They saw him as something more. The predators regrouped, growling in the shadows, preparing for another charge. Elias lifted the weapon again, his arms shaking, his veins screaming. The lead being spoke behind him, its voice low and unyielding. Now you understand the price. To wield our gift is to carry our burden. Every night until the end, you will fight with us. You will bleed with us. You are bound. Elias turned, his face pale, sweat dripping. I never agreed to this. The being's eyes glowed like fire. You agreed the moment you fed them. Elias's stomach twisted. He looked around the clearing. The children hissing war cries, the predators shrieking in the forest, the weapon burning in his hand. He realized there was no escape. The gift was his prison. The night raged on. And with every strike, every kill, every scream, Elias felt the truth settle deeper in his bones. He had not been chosen. He had been trapped. The battle dragged on through the night. The clearing was littered with broken shells, predator corpses, and glowing shards from shattered trees. Smoke rose from the ground where the weapon had cut too deep, burning soil and stone alike. Elias staggered, his body shaking, his arm numb from the weight of the living blade. Each strike had drained him further. His breath came in ragged gasps. His vision blurred at the edges, glowing with faint white light, the same light that poured from the weapon. The predators finally withdrew. Their red eyes flickered in the distance, shrinking back into the forest. Not defeated, only waiting. The children hissed after them, victorious cries sharp and piercing. They stood taller now, their thin bodies glowing brighter, their claws stained with predator blood. One by one, their eyes turned back to Elias, and they bowed, not to the glowing beings, not to the crystal spires. They bowed to him. Elias froze. His chest tightened. The children, dozens of them, lowered their heads in unison. Their sharp claws dug into the soil. Their glowing eyes locked onto him with devotion. The lead being stepped forward, its face calm but its voice heavy. They know who woke them. They know who fed them. You are their feeder, their protector, their leader. Elias shook his head, stumbling backward. No, I'm not their leader. I didn't choose this. The being's eyes flared. Choice is an illusion. You gave them life. They are yours and you are theirs. That bond cannot be broken. The weapon pulsed in his hand, throbbing in rhythm with his heartbeat. Elias tried to drop it, but his fingers would not release. The blade felt like part of him now, fused to his very bones. He whispered, almost to himself, "What have you done to me?" The being's reply was soft, but it carried the weight of finality. "We have given you purpose." The children rose, their hissing cries filling the clearing again. They circled Elias, their glowing forms surrounding him, their claws tapping the ground in rhythm. It sounded like drums. Like a chant, protector, the being said. Child feeder, you're bound to our future. When our children spread across the stars, they will carry your mark. Your name will live in them. Elias's blood ran cold. He saw it clearly now, the vision of the future. Not just one night. Not just one battle. Countless nights. Countless children. Each generation stronger, sharper, hungrier. And each one tied to him. He saw fleets of crystal ships leaving this world filled with glowing warriors. He saw them spreading to other stars, other colonies, other worlds. And in every face, every glowing eye, he saw himself reflected. Humanity would not remember him as an explorer. They would remember him as the man who fed an empire. The children hissed louder, their voices rising like a storm. They pressed closer, claws scraping against the ground, glowing eyes fixed on him. Not with hatred, not with fear, with loyalty. Loyalty so strong it felt like chains. Elias's knees buckled. He fell to the ground, the weapon blazing in his grip. He wanted to scream, but the sound died in his throat. He looked up at the lead being, his voice hoarse. What if I refuse? What if I fight you instead? The being leaned closer, its glowing face inches from his. Then the children will follow you still. They will kill for you, die for you. You cannot escape them. They are your shadow. Even if you turn against us, you cannot turn against them. They are yours. Elias stared at the children, their glowing claws, their endless eyes. A truth settled deep inside him, heavier than any blade. He had not only armed them, he had fathered them. The forest fell quiet again. The predator's growls faded into the distance. Dawn had not yet come, but the clearing pulsed with victory. The lead being raised its arms, speaking to the sky. Night has passed. The feeder has kept our children alive. The cycle continues. The children shriek together, the sound shaking the ground. Elias clutched the weapon, his hand bleeding, his heart pounding. He knew then what his gift truly was, not freedom, not power, it was bondage. And when dawn finally came, the light did not bring peace. It only revealed what Elias already feared. The night was not his prison. The children were, and they would follow him, across the stars, across the years until humanity itself faced the choice he had faced. Feed them, or be devoured.